Hello everyone, we are going to talk about researching climbing areas today. So I got a lot of my guidebooks here, even more, I can't even hold them all up. But we're going to talk about how you can do this if you're planning to go on a climbing trip and if you're just researching your local area, and how I kind of go through that process and how I've found over my years of climbing the kind of boxes that I ticked so that I fully understand an area, and when I go, I'm prepared. So I'll show you our agenda here for this video call. First, we're going to talk a little bit about guidebooks. Then we're going to talk about websites and the different ones that you could choose. And then people, like how to find and talk to these people who probably know a lot about the climbing area, especially current trends or different weird things that could be happening in a climbing area, whether it's access issues or new climbs, stuff like that. Facebook, which is actually a surprisingly helpful resource. And then there was a couple questions that were just asked in a live chat. I might get to those. But yeah, it's going to be mostly talking about all of these. Actually, we're going to start with websites and then we're going to go into everything else. So I already made a video on this, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. One website that, at least in North America, I find is pretty well populated for climbing information. Oh, I guess it has to stay on this page. Is Mountain Project. So say I hear of an area like Red River Gorge. I can just search that in here. Red River Gorge. Sometimes you have to go zoom in a little bit and then zoom out. Red River Gorge. So one thing that you can start with, say you really have no clue, you don't even know what climbing area you want to do. I'll do a video on, inspiration, how to find areas. But Mountain Project has these maps where you can zoom out and figure out where the climbing even is in these areas. So Red River Gorge is a pretty legendary area in Kentucky, USA. So say this is an area that I'm interested in. First thing I'll do is I'll get to the landing page and I'll figure out what season I can go climbing in. A lot of times we're restricted just because there's other things in life on when we can go climbing. So specifically when I went here, it was in the fall, and I'll show you how I knew that it was a good time to go climbing here. So one, you get prime climbing season. I don't know how these specific numbers are aggregated, but I imagine it's based on the traffic because people can mark that they've done climbs. And you can see basically March through May, there's a decent amount of climbing, and then it gets quite hot, I guess, through the summertime, so not as many people go. And then October, November, those are the times where it's kind of the perfect temperature, and you can see that reflected in the prime climbing season. And then over here, you can see how the temperature goes up and down with the seasons and the correlation between the perfect temperature and climbing. And then it has precipitation here as well. So September, October, the least precipitation, best weather. And then you can also see as you scroll through the months, the averages for that month as far as precipitation. Somewhere like the Squamish in the Sea to Sky has a ton of precipitation. Like I was just out there, it's a ton of precipitation in the shoulder season, so the fall and spring. And then the summer, it's a lot less. Like you'll have, I don't even know, you could do that for fun. Squamish. Because if you only, I know some people are restricted by times they can take off work and stuff like that. So if you only have a week to go climbing this year, then you don't want to get there and then it's just raining all the time. Yeah, you can see July, August are the prime. And then in May, there's 17 days of precipitation, 15 in June. And then same thing, October, November. So unless you're hitting this 4-month window, you're getting smashed by rain and it's cold enough that it doesn't dry up quickly. Not great. So that's like the high scope. Also, you'll get some information just based on, the area sometimes. This is totally volunteer-based, so kind of like Wikipedia. Someone has to go in and write all these things. So sometimes you get a description that's longer than this. With more specific areas, you'll get a bit more of an approach, like park here, this is where you park. Camping, accommodations, where to eat, so on and so forth. And then sometimes they'll also recommend a guidebook in this area. So it's worth just poking around here. But one thing I'm going to get onto next, so that is websites, mountain projects, season, guidebooks, pictures. Oh yeah, on each climb, like say there's some pretty legendary climbs. One thing it'll do on mountain project is show you the classic routes. So Klahani Crack is pretty legendary. You can see it's pretty cool when you tick these, like you've done them. I don't actually consistently tick everything that I've done here. Like Skywalker, this is actually this is a trad climb, but it's got this one pitch that's super epic on it. I think it has a little, if I remember right, it says "May the Force be with you" on like a little metal thing someone put in the wall here, which is kind of cool. But when you go to the actual, yeah, there it is. That's still up there. And each climb it'll show you, you know, how long it is, how many pitches, the first ascents. And then one of the really great things is that it'll do the route description for single pitch. That's not as big of a deal, but it'll have pictures of certain spots so you can familiarize yourself with the area. But then these comments, like here's one: climbed on Friday, only one other route. First, second, and third pitches are most fun. So you can get information that's really given by people that's recent. Like this was posted 2024 May 11th. So I'm filming this on July 1st. This is in the last 2 months. So that's Mountain Project. They're starting to update it, and I think they're trying to put a paywall in on like a certain other feature. I don't know how it's exactly working, but as of now, this is all free, which is cool. The other one that people do use is called the Crag. My European buddies have talked about using this a little bit more. I find the interface, like here we can just search climbing or Squamish as an example, the interface a little bit more choppy. I haven't actually explored it too much, so maybe it's just I'm not experienced with it, but I just find Mountain Project to be a little bit better. There's also a lot of ads on here, which sucks. Yes, is there ads on here? No. It's loading right now. I searched Squamish. Yeah, you can explore the Crag is my too long don't read on here. And depending on the area, sometimes the Crag might have more written on it than other places. Okay, so that's websites. The next thing we're going to talk about, going in a weird order here, is guidebooks. So like I said, I have a bunch of guidebooks here. This isn't even all of them that I've got before, but guidebooks, usually it depends which way the book's facing. Depends on who climbs it and like the publishing company sometimes on the format, but often within the climbing book, it'll show you. Let's see if we can get some single pitch stuff. Oh yeah, this is a 6 spot, Petrifying Wall in Squamish. It'll show you the line that indicates the routes, and then I'll have a description of each climb. So it'll show like, say there's a number here, 15, and then you go to 15, and it'll tell you the name of the route, the grade, and then depending on the guidebook, it'll have more information about the climb or less. And there's a lot of variance between the books here on that. And then the other thing it does for you is it gives you maps of certain areas. So usually there's one big map at the beginning that just shows the kind of broader area. This is the Squamish one, and it just has, you know, the big zoomed out version. Then as you go into each crag individually, it usually shows you like a topo map of that area. Yeah, so, you know, there's this crag, and then you can see, like, oh, if I'm walking along here, there's a big tree, and I should see that, and then I'm looking for indicators, so it's just a matter of compiling all that information, figuring out where you are when you're actually there. But getting that guidebook before you go out to the area can be really beneficial. So I figure out I want to go somewhere, I research it and make sure that I can get there during that season, and then my next step is going to be buying the guidebook. Ideally, you buy it online and have it shipped to you. Or if your local store, like if you're climbing locally, then you can just buy it at your local store. I have also traveled and then purchased the guidebook when I arrived there. if you are going to do that, call wherever you're going to buy the guidebook from and make sure that they have some in stock, because you don't want to land and you're going climbing the next day and you get to the store and they're sold out. They just don't sell it, so make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah. Guidebooks, pictures, make sure you're in stock. Awesome. So now we're going to talk about people. This is obviously a huge resource that if you do it right, you can actually get a lot of great information that's up to date. So this is kind of my breakdown of how I've talked to people and gained information. First, I start with my friends at the gym, so people that I just know at the climbing gym, like, hey, have you ever been here? I'm thinking about going climbing in Vegas or Kentucky or Banff or whatever. And then they'll say, yeah, I have been there, no, I haven't, whatever. And then you get to kind of extract whatever information they have. Climbing gym staff, that can be hit or miss. They could just be like a 16-year-old who is really into climbing, or, you know, some person who sets routes, but they only pull on plastic, so they don't climb outside. So sometimes they know stuff, sometimes they don't. But it's worth asking, like, hey, have you ever heard of, you know, climbing at the back of Lake Louise, or ever heard of climbing Squamish? That you can see if they have any information. They'll be like, oh yeah, I camped there. My buddy camped there. He said it's really, really cool. Or like he went this time of year, whatever. You get information. Outdoor stores. So in Canada, this is Mountain Equipment Co-op. The US, REI, those are the big ones. But there's also a lot of small climbing stores. Like in Vegas, when I was there recently, there's like a climbing specific store. Same thing with Squamish. There's a couple of stores that sell. One store that sells climbing specific stuff, and one that has, it's not mech, but it still sells outdoor gear. So this is a funny way to do this, but you can literally just call the store and be like, hey, do you guys have someone who's done a lot of climbing who's working right now? Because not everyone who works at outdoor stores does climbing, right? Like when I worked at Mountain Equipment Co-op, I was like the only one who's been outdoor climbing, basically. So try and find that person, get them on the phone, and be like, hey, I'm really excited. I'm thinking of coming out there to climb, or like I'm thinking of going here. Do you have any recommendations or advice before I get there? And then just let them talk and, you know, amp them up. Be like, oh, that's great. That's so cool. Thank you so much for telling me that. Is there any other cool spots, or like if you're camping beta, all that? Yeah, and then the guide organizations, you can do the same thing at guide organizations. Usually they won't be as keen to just sit on the phone and talk with you if you're calling a guide, because they're salespeople. They're meant to just be, when do you want to book? What do you want? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, so it's harder to, I've never actually called a guiding organization, but in person, if you see a guide when you're actually out there, this is mostly for if you're already in the area and you see a guide and maybe they're like not busy at the moment, be like, hey, I'm kind of new here. Is there any crag you recommend or anything we should do while we're here? We're only here for 3 days, because the guides know like everything. If they're guiding in an area, usually they've been climbing there for many years, and they're literally the best person you could ask about information. But they're also usually busy helping their clients, setting up ropes. So, if you just see them in the parking lot or something, and they usually have their guide organization on their shirt or hat or whatever, because they have to. So that was the in-person stuff. Not in person, I already kind of mentioned this a little bit. I blended these together. But phone the local gym, phone the local guiding company, phone the local outdoor store. It's the game there. And then, you know, when I touched down, like when I landed in Vegas, I literally just like drove to the climbing gym. It's like, hey, I'm new here. Any recommendations? And then the climbing store, I'm like, any recommendations? Because, you know, you only have to find one person who knows a lot, and then all of a sudden your trip can be a lot better. Okay, so the last thing here is Facebook groups. So making a post or just joining a Facebook group. So I actually have the Ontario one up here. This is a question that I asked in the Facebook group. You don't even have to ask the question. You can kind of just poke around. But I asked, what's your favorite crag? And it says 78 comments. So all these people were like, go here, go here, go here, go here. So all of a sudden, just by like a 2 minute, not even 1 minute of me just typing, I now have all this intel from people. Now, remember, some of these people might have just climbed literally at one spot and they just want to talk about it. Just gotta take it with a grain of salt, but it's potentially, especially when people say things like, oh, like if they have a bit more of a long response and they're, friendly and approachable to new customers, skywalk capable wonders, easy approach, slab overhangs, like great camping brewery pizza in town. This is a great one, especially if you're not trying to travel far. You can just find your local, hopefully you have a Facebook group there. Banff, for example, doesn't for some reason, even though there's so much climbing, but Squamish does, and it has 34,000 people in it. Banff does have one for ice climbing, and a lot of those guys and girls climb as well, so you can post them there. But yeah, I found that Facebook groups can be a super essential, and you can start to have Discord. Like someone establishes themselves. I think one guy commented on here about an area that I've never heard of, and then I just started messaging him. I was like, oh, can you tell me a little bit more about this? Like, there's no guidebook for this area. Is there anywhere you have information? Can you, share that with me? So I've used Facebook groups, and I'll share a couple of these links. Yeah. Have it up already? No. The Squamish one's crazy too. I posted, in case you guys are looking for inspiration, I'll post this link as well in the description or wherever the heck I'm posting this. But I posted in Squamish because there's so many experienced, like lifelong climbers here. It's like, what's the best destination you've ever climbed? Just seeking some inspiration and information. And then a little cheeky, like, oh, I'm not going to tell everyone. If you want to message me privately, I won't tell anyone, but obviously they post on this publicly. So there's so many people that commented on this. Once again, it's like 76 comments. And yeah, it's just a great, people like want to talk about the cool places they've been, and Facebook groups are a place that do that. So yeah, I think Vegas, and to give you one last example, Vegas climbers, this one I joined last fall. Sometimes they're just looking for partners. It's another video, but like sometimes people are like, oh, I'm looking for, this person's actually, they're coming and they're looking for accommodation. So you can find hosts, recommendations, yada, yada, yada. But you can just post in here like, hey, I'm coming here. What are the 3 things that you think every new person should know? For example, climbing in Vegas, and you'll know this if you do any research, but if the rock is wet, you have to wait a long time, like a day or 2, depending on the area, to make sure the rock is totally dried out before you climb again. But that's my little spiel on researching climbing areas. One thing that I just did a live session with someone on this, and one thing they asked about is top rope listed climbs in Mountain Project. So if we go back to Mountain Project, some of them are listed as, zoom back out. Basically, they'll have the listing as their top rope accessible, and that means that someone has said that you can walk up to the top of the climb, set up the anchor, throw the rope down, and walk around, so it prevents you from having to lead climb. But because this is like Wikipedia, anyone can place that on there. Anyone can say that it's easy to get up to the top and clip in the anchor. But for some people, something that feels easy or safe might be unsafe for others. Like I've had to walk up to the top of climbs when I was guiding and just setting up anchors, where it's a little bit on an angle and there's some dirt, and then if you slip, you're dropping off the side of a cliff. And then setting up the safety system is actually not as easy as it might seem, because if you have a static line running to a tree and then to you and you fall, if you fall and there's extension on a static line and then it catches you, you can actually break your back or kill you. So you want to be careful when you see that listing of top rope accessible. Unless I've had a conversation with someone where they say, oh yeah, it's very easy to walk up to the anchor and safely set it up. I assume that it's not going to be very easy, and there is some skills you can get to make that safer, as far as setting up safeties on a tree or rock to approach the anchor, but oftentimes you just have to lead up to the anchors. That's just the reality of the game we're playing. I think I covered everything. Yeah, that's it. That's research and climbing. I'll do another one on getting inspiration for climbing, or if you're like, I don't even know where to start to find climbing areas, if you want to, you can quickly take a picture of these movies and books. This is for a future video. Valley Uprising, Real Rock, The Alpinist, Dawn Wall. Those are all great. The Dawn Wall, The Alpinist, Dawn Wall. Yeah. Anyway, that's my research and climbing video. Hopefully you gain stuff from it. Just drop a comment if you have any questions or clarification on things, as always, and I will see y'all later. Peace.